welcome to another edition of Spotlight On. Today, we're joined by Vires Simmons from Woodrow Wilson High School. Ms. Simmons is retiring at the end of the year after more than 4 decades in the Camden City School District, and we want to talk with her today about some of her lessons, some of her memories, some of her experiences from her time working in the school district. Ms. Simmons, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Of course. And so let's start, I guess we'll do it chronologically. So
Okay.
Why don't we start about you as a student, and you are from Camden originally. Can you talk a little bit about where you grew up and where you went to school in Camden?
Yes, I'm originally from Camden. I grew up in South Camden, primarily around 5th and Cherry Street. I went to elementary school at Fetter School.
Okay.
I went to Bergen Square, then I went to Hatch Middle School,
Okay.
then Camden High. Graduated from Camden High, then did my journey to college.
Okay. And when Ms. Simmons was a student and not in front of the classroom like she is now, what were you like as a student back at Hatch or back at some of the schools?
I tell people I was bashful and shy. Most people don't think so. Perhaps education has gotten me out of it because
Yeah.
you have to be in front of the classes, students. And I remember one of my principals, Fontella Ruff, she stated that teachers were rejected actors and actresses. And she was a very prime and prim person, and you could just see her with her body language and stuff like that.
Right.
So, but I was a relatively quiet person, but education was very important in my household.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were very pro-education. We always read. My mother was into the classicals. My father was into more the jazz and classic and the blues type of arts.
Okay.
So I got the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I worked while I was in school, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. Were there subjects in school that you were particularly fond of or particularly not fond of?
I loved math and reading, and I
Okay.
wound up being a special ed reading as well as a math teacher.
That makes perfect sense.
I liked the arts and history, but I liked school in general.
Yeah.
Basically, I did, really.
And were there teachers that stood out as you think back now to your time in some of these schools?
My first grade teacher, Miss Eggleston,
Miss?
Mrs. Eggleston.
Okay, tell us about her.
I don't remember too much except that she was a very good teacher. She would listen, and I really appreciated her demeanor, the way she looked and dressed, as well as talked. My 4th grade teacher, Miss Davis, she was a very good teacher, a disciplinarian. Mr. Frank Buchanan, my 6th grade teacher, he was also principal at one of the schools and has since retired and expired. But he was a large person, and I remember going on various class trips with the various teachers. And one of my memorable trips was to Washington, D.C. with Mr. Buchanan.
Neat.
We went to the Capitol, we went into the White House, all those things that you don't have the luxury to do these days. We were able to do that. And I
Neat.
still have pictures of us being on the Capitol step,
Nice.
the steps of the Capitol.
Nice. And what was the high like back then?
What do you mean?
As a school, Camden High, how was it? It was a lot larger, I believe, as the number of students that were there than it is now. It was in better condition than it is now, although we're going to renovate it in the coming years. But what was it like to be a student at Camden High when you were there?
I guess I was mystified because it was so large and you had so many wings and buildings to go from one to
Right.
the other. And I had classes in all 3 wings at the time. The annex wasn't there when I was, or they may have been just building it.
Okay.
But it was fun. It was enjoyable. It was hard work. And again, because my parents were pro-education, it wasn't like I was allowed to slouch and play around too much. So there were basic things
Right.
that were given that I had to have in place just living in my parents' home. Yeah.
And the decision to go into education yourself, is that something that came from seeing those teachers who you mentioned? Was it something that came from home with your parents? Where did the inspiration come from?
And there was a combination of both parents as well as the educators. But the other thing was, in my parents' home, you either went to work or you went to school, so you were not going to lay around. And I really wanted to be a physical therapist, and I had not heard from the college, so I decided to go into education.
Interesting. Huh. How do you think things would have been different if you'd gone into physical therapy?
I probably would be teaching it for some reason or other, but I really would
Yeah.
have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
As I said to you earlier, I do have nursing background, so that medical aspect would probably be a highlight for me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you decide to go into education, and where do you go to school and for college, and what is college like for you?
Well, I started out at Gloucester County College, and that's how I got my nursing, and I transferred over to, which was Glassboro State, which is now Rowan University.
Mm-hmm.
I've done graduate work at, used to be Trenton State, College of New Jersey now is the name of it, Temple, as well as back at Rowan for some graduate work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then coming out of school, did you get right into the classroom?
I did.
Okay.
Right from graduating that June, September, I got my first teaching assignment at Fetter School, which was the same elementary I started elementary school at.
And
Yeah.
was that random, or was that because you knew some of the folks there, or how did it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But back in the day, your parents still, my mother was still involved with the community, and I applied for the job and got it. That was it. That's all I knew, and I went and started teaching.
Wow. So you were a 22 or something year old
Yes.
teacher, and you know, how challenging was that coming right out of school and going right back into the classroom?
Well, I was always task oriented.
Okay.
I always was focused in on doing what I had to do and pacing myself. So it really wasn't a problem. For example, I had my own apartment by the time I was a sophomore, my own new car. So I was always working in between to do different things for myself. That independence was very important for me.
Yeah.
And that background that I received from my parents.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you started Fetters, and kind of take us through how your career developed from there.
Well, Fetters, I started at kindergarten to like the 3rd grade, which was Miss Turner. Then I
Okay.
transferred over to Bergen Square, which is now Wiggins School.
Okay.
And from Wiggins, I went, well, for me it was Bergen Square. I went to Hatch Middle School. And in between, I always wanted to be a secretary, ironically enough. But for some reason, God has said, no, you don't want to sit there and answer the phone and Mr. So-and-so's office, may I help you please, all day. So then I said, well, I'll go into education, particularly once I had not heard from the college. Like I said, I wanted to become a physical therapist. So that's my journey. And I took various graduate courses in various different schools.
And were the graduate courses just to kind of stay sharp and stay up to date with the latest trends that were being taught, and kind of further your own education as a teacher?
Well, that along with the fact that I did want to go into administration, but then I got caught up with the union. I went to union school and the apprentice school and stuff like that for being an advocate for members as well as the students for the city of Camden.
Okay. And so did you get involved in the CEA
Very
here?
heavily, very
Okay.
heavily, as well as on the CEA for the local Camden County Council for the county,
Okay.
NJEA for the state,
Okay.
and the NEA. And
Okay.
I've been fortunate enough to go out as delegates for various positions,
Oh, wow.
as well as different committees and ad hocs, and I've just been involved with a lot of stuff.
No kidding. For folks who are watching, NJEA, the State Teachers Union, NEA, at the national level, so certainly a lot of involvement there. And so that kind of became your, almost like your administrator level experience, or was that kind of where you applied some of the lessons you were learning in the administration?
Well, I collaborated with people as well as mentored with various people. I pride myself in believing and thinking I've always been like an advocate for various people. If you were new, it was Vires who would come in and help you out because none of us really have gotten any place without the assistance or the support of others. And that's pretty much how I got my position or my feelings and even my administrative positions for people. And I've been chairpersons in different schools, different levels.
And what was the goal? What were you looking to accomplish by choosing to get involved to the level that you did?
Like I said, being an advocate to help others. It goes back to that education, helping others, being there to support people, and to help direct them into whatever area I thought they needed to go. Even to this day, I'm going to be a delegate in Orlando this year.
Oh, wow. And can you tell us a little bit more about what it means to be a delegate?
Well, I'm representing New Jersey as one of the many people who will be attending this convention. The NEA convention has a rotating basis for different locations. And we'll be in Orlando this year. That means getting information, finding out what's happening in other districts in comparison as to what's happening here in Camden as well as New Jersey. As bad as we think Camden may be, there are other districts that are even worse, particularly when they don't have collective bargaining rights. So you learn a lot of the nuts and bolts and see what's going on with different districts and different states.
Yeah.
So to me, it's still refreshing. It's a wealth of knowledge to be sought and gathered, as well as to give back. And even though I'm retiring, I've shared with my friends and colleagues, I'm only a phone call away, just an email away. If you need me for anything, I'm ready to do whatever I can to help out.
That's great. That's great. And so I want to hear a little bit more about that involvement, but let's kind of finish the arc of your career. You spent a lot of time at, started at elementary level, but then you spent a lot of time at the high school level, is that right?
That's correct.
You were now at Woodrow Wilson, but you were also at Camden High?
Yes.
And so what were you teaching when you were, so you were at Fetters, then you came back to Fetters, you were at Camden High as a student, then you went back to Camden High as a...
I've always been a special ed teacher.
Okay.
So I've taught in-class support youngsters. I've taught individualized classes. I've taught self-contained classes. I've also done where I was a teacher who moved to kids or pull out situations and stuff like. So I've done a gamut of different types of teaching settings and arenas.
And are you more comfortable in one than the other, or prefer one or the other?
I think I like in-class support if the support systems are in place, if they're working properly, if you have a good marriage with the person you're working with. And I say that because I think it works well if you have those things in place. For example, I would think that if a principal wanted people to be as in-class support team teachers, they should have started like last month to see who wants to do that, and to allow people to get a feel for what's the classroom management, what's the style, what courses do I as a special ed teacher perhaps need to brush up on to help me better facilitate whatever it is I need to do.
And are you as a teacher similar to how you were as a student, very kind of task focused? It sounded like very disciplined. Has that kind of translated into your teaching style? Are you kind of more lower key with the students, or how do you tend to go about your craft?
I'm more disciplinary, I'm more strict. However, I realize that people are people. Youngsters are children, and they need to know that there is blood running through your veins. You can't just be an iceberg all the time, but you can have your regimentation so they know specifically what is expected of them. And I try to be consistent with whatever it is I'm talking about. If it's wrong today, it's wrong tomorrow. If it's good today, it's good tomorrow. I think praise is good. I think everybody needs to be stroked. And particularly our inner city youngsters need to know that people do care, and you're going to be consistent with whatever it is you're saying, even with your attendance. I have quite a few days that I've accumulated. One, I've not been a sickly person. I never had to take off a lot of time. And I think that's been very important for the youngsters also.
Do you mind sharing, just out of curiosity, how many sick days you've...
Over 330 plus days. And they may owe me more.
That's what I figured. Wow, okay, that's almost a year. Well done.
It's almost 2 school years.
Yeah.
Almost.
That's right, yeah, 180 days in a year. Yeah, wow. You talked a little bit about some of your students in general. Are there students in particular who you've had that kind of stick out? You've probably served at this point hundreds, if not thousands, of students. But are there ones that, I mean, you might have students who are now parents, and now you're seeing their students, but... That's
true. I have some parents, even this year, I had you as a teacher, you look the same, you act the same, blasé this. And it's just good to see some people come back who have succeeded, and to say that I can help with some of their children as well. So I've had a number of youngsters come my way. I've taught various exceptionalities, disciplines as part of the special ed arena. So it's been a variety of things that I've had to deal with in order to present my lessons to see if they will obtain or retain the information. So I have a wealth of background with that as well.
And how did you adjust to so many changes in leadership, at the top of the district? You've worked for a lot of different principals. You've, I imagine, dealt with a lot of different curriculum that you've been given to, teach this, and then a few years later it's teach that. And you've lived through a good deal of it. And what's your approach been to kind of navigating?
Stay in prayer. Stay in prayer. And I'm a firm believer of being a team player. And even if I don't necessarily agree with whatever, I'm somewhat of a vocal person. I'll let you know basically what's what, but I'm not one who will sabotage things. I'm willing to work things out. And I've often said, because I've been down this road before, it's going to take a little more for me to get more excited. If there's a new person who has all the excitement and the rah-rahs, go for it. I'm not going to say don't do it, because we always have to learn at our own pace. But I've just relished the idea that I've worked with different people, different experiences and exposures to different things. So it's helped me along the way. And I'm a firm believer of having friends away from your job.
To get balance in your life?
I think so, for me.
Yeah.
I'm involved heavily in my church.
Okay.
I have another network, like I said, of friends. I would like the people I work with, but they're not my all in all. I don't think education can or should be your all in all. You should have some other diversions, some releases, some positive things, and I believe in having fun, enjoying life. I often bring or have brought to the classrooms the experiences, vacations and stuff like that, and sometimes just to see their eyes light up, like, have you ever been in a hot air balloon? And I've done that, and I show them the pictures, or white water rafting, and something else that you can do beyond where you see where you're at. And I often remind the youngsters there's nothing wrong with living in Camden or going to school in Camden, but there's a world beyond where we're at. Learn different languages, learn the cultures. Right now you're like sponges, so absorb all those things. Learn to travel, learn to eat different foods. And I've gotten some backlashes about that, but I think it's something that's necessary, particularly since we don't have the opportunity of taking them on as many trips as we used to back in the day. Because when I was in the elementary school or teaching there, we used to do a lot of walking trips. You don't have the luxury anymore. And we'd walk from Fetters out to Parkside and stuff like that, and have lunch and catch the speed line and all kinds of stuff, or cook in the classrooms and stuff like that.
For the sake of everybody else who won't have the opportunity to be in your classroom and isn't here today, can you tell us what it was like to be in a hot air balloon?
Awesome. Just so peaceful and tranquil. I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And they don't allow you to go out when there's any turbulency. The night before, there had been either a storm or threat of a storm. It was just very peaceful. We helped get the balloon up. It was just myself, a young lady from Detroit, Michigan, and a pilot. But it was just such a panoramic view. I mean, it was just like you wanted to fly or something, know that you're not going to jump out the basket or anything. But it was really a lot of fun. To me, it was awesome. And I would do it more. I have to get new friends, though.
But do you, in education, some folks talk a lot about burnout and teachers going through their career very quickly. Do you think that some of the reasons you've been able to sustain your career as well as you have is because you had that kind of life-work balance going better? You had some of the travel, you had some of these different experiences, so it wasn't all just in the classroom and the job 100% of the time?
I think it's very important to have balance. I think it's very important to have other things and people, activities in your life. I've done things and I still enjoy ceramics and music and reading. So it's a wealth of things that's still rolling around in my head that I like to do. And those are downtime things for me. And sometimes I say, sometimes you really have to be selfish in life. Selfish to the point where people used to want me to sell my pieces, my ceramics or whatever I was sewing on. And my thing was, I don't want to get into a business. I just want to do it for enjoyment. Or if I liked you as a person, you did a favor or something for me, I was over at your home. or maybe this person would like this color, or maybe they like this figurine or something. So I would get joy out of the intricate workings of those kind of things, just sharing my experiences and being able to do it. At this late date in my life, I'm planning on picking up the clarinet again.
Really?
Yes, and either learning to crochet or to knit.
Huh. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, the clarinet I had started, but I had a fall in 2013, so I couldn't sit very long. So now that that's over with, I'm ready to get back into doing the clarinet. I used to want to play the drums. My mother wouldn't allow that. It was too loud and too noisy, and I guess too masculine for her. But she started me out with the piano, and I'm like, that's okay. So I said I'll do the clarinet as a health thing, and not that I have a health problem, for breathing capacity, lung capacity, just inhaling, exhaling to blow out on something. So I like to think about things that will help me in the long run. So that was that.
I like that. And sewing you're going to take up as well?
Well, I used to sew.
Okay.
As a hobby.
Yeah.
So I'll probably get back into sewing, just little things. Or I'm involved with my church. We go over to Philadelphia, and we help feed the homeless. Nice. So we also give clothes and stuff. So some of these things I might even just make some garments, or knitting or crocheting the lap blankets and stuff like that. Various things, nursing home and stuff. Yeah. I'm always wanting to give back, just sharing my skills and whatever with people, wherever I can.
Yeah. How do you think that you changed as an educator over the course of, you started your career in 1974?
Yes.
Is that right? How do you think you've changed over the course of that time? Have you changed over the course of that time?
Well, I've had to change. I've had to change with the different administrators. I've had to change with the times in which we live. I've had to change with the new or the different students that come in, with the social ills that they have, the baggage that they're bringing in. Our youngsters are still students, but they have so many social problems and ills that they have to contend with before they even get into the schools. So I think you have to be compassionate enough to see it, feel it, and be able to identify it, but work around them. So I think I'm a little more flexible in my thinking with them. I don't give them everything, but I give them the flexibility of understanding that there are other circumstances that they may have no control over beyond the scope of what we as the adults and the educators would even think about. I've often said if we had to go through a portion of what some of our young people have gone through or do on a daily basis, we wouldn't make it. We definitely wouldn't.
And the social ills that some of the students are coming in with, you think is reflective of how Camden itself has changed over the course of this time?
Yes, the poverty, the lack of the funds to help them out, the social agencies are not in place, the support systems are not in place. If they are, a large portion of our young people, and as well as their parents, don't have the resources to know where to get the help if they need it. And then the family structure. And even though people have said it's because the young people are having children younger, I don't go along with that, because years ago people did have children at a younger age. However, you had that network of people, Aunt Hattie, Aunt Sally, somebody else was there to help bring the young people in. Now people have gotten so dispersed and divided, you can't really say too much to people, and people are so defensive about so many things. So a lot of things have happened to affect them with unemployment, the economy. A lot of that stuff has really impacted a lot of our young people.
And you have made a choice to live in Camden. You moved away for some time, and then you came back. Why do you choose to reside in Camden as you continue to teach in Camden schools?
I believe in giving back. Everybody cannot have that flight modality, you know. I'm comfortable with my house. I fell in love with the hardwood oak, the light oak hardwood floors throughout it. And there's still a sense of pride in my neighborhood. It's a small block, but you can see other neighborhoods coming back as well. And I've had some pride in feeling that I contributed to helping young people see that you can live in Camden. You don't have to live in a roach-infested home, not to put anyone down. You can take care of whatever you have, you know, show pride in yourself as well as your properties. So I think that's helped.
For teachers who are just beginning their careers, or for current Camden students who might be going to college, going to Rowan, getting their teaching certificate. What advice do you have to share with them, lessons learned from your time in the classroom as they begin to kind of take the mantle?
Listen, be objective, pay attention, and get involved. Get involved with the schools, get involved with your communities. Don't just look at it 8:30 to 3 o'clock or 3:30, whatever the schedule is. Just become involved with different things. Not to the point it burns you out, but just get involved. Know what's going on. Get to know your students. Really get to know them. That would be one of the best things.
Yeah.
Let them know you. You don't have to get into a real personal thing, but to let them know that you're a human being and not just somebody way out wherever,
Right.
that they can relate to means a lot to them.
How do you find the balance there? I know a lot of teachers are wary of kind of the tricky nature of, you know, maybe you're not friends on Facebook with students, but you do need to let them know that you're human. And so how do you navigate kind of the murky waters there?
I'm kind of strict about that because basically I'm a private person. But I also think you have to separate yourself somewhat from your students as well as your own lifestyle. And because I've worked in the high schools and they're so transient, I don't want students to feel they can just drop in on me. But they know that they can come and talk to me. They have something they need to discuss. They feel comfortable enough to pull me aside. Ms. Simmons, such and such, and sometimes I really don't want to hear some of the conversations, but because they feel that it's not going to go any further, and my integrity is in place, they feel comfortable enough to share different things with me.
Yeah.
But I don't let them get into where I live at, children. I joke with them. I'll say I live in the boiler room at Camden High or the boiler room at Woodrow Wilson. And well, where do you shop at? I said, I'm a trash picker. You know, I'm so poor. I'll say pole. I use egg cartons for my bra, something like that. I said I have one outfit. I tie-dye it. No, you know. So, and that stimulates conversations too on different levels with them. But they'll be like, that teacher's crazy. Even this year, my teacher's really crazy. You know? But that also allows them to feel comfortable. I think you know, it's the fun part.
My fifth grade teacher used to tell us that she was 100 years old.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Or I'm 199. How old are you? 199. What are you? Because they want to know what your ethnicity is, what's your race. And I've said I'm a mongrel, I'm a mutt. You're a mutt? Aren't we all? You know, so it's stuff like that. They really look at you like, she's really saying such and such like that. One young man said, he wants to buy my car constantly because he wants to soup up the cars. And I'm like, well, buy your own car. He's not even of age yet. You know, so it's stuff like that.
Right. And
they feel, you know, comfortable with me about those things.
Yeah. We only have a few minutes left, but I want to go back. You just talked about pride and in your community, but I want to just ask you about your own kind of points of pride as an educator. You've, again, served hundreds and hundreds of students, and now that kind of your time in this role, you still certainly have plans to be very active, but as an educator in the Camden City School District, are there things that you're particularly proud of?
I'm proud of me as a person. I'm proud that I've been able to share and exemplify what I think is necessary as an educator. I pride in keeping my room neat and colorful, cheerful, pleasant, and a place that they feel comfortable to come to. I'm just basically a proud person because I was raised with that as part of my mantra, so it's kind of hard for me to think any differently. So I think what I do is share that with the students, as well as my colleagues, as well as with my administrators, because I have the feeling that even though you're from Camden, for the youngsters, don't let anyone talk you down or make you feel bad. Always have a sense of pride, not boldness where you can't think things through and nobody can tell you anything, but respect yourself. And I think that goes a long ways, and people will treat you accordingly. Yeah. For the most part.
Ms. Simmons, I want to thank you for joining us, for sharing so much of yourself in our interview, but also more significantly over the last 40 years, and your service to the students here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Spotlight On. this time with one of our great educators here in Camden City School District. As a reminder, you can email us your story ideas for future episodes at communications@camden.k12.nj.us. As a reminder, please like us on Facebook, you can follow us on Twitter, and you can watch this interview with Ms. Simmons and many others on our YouTube station. For now, I'm Brendan Lowe with the Camden City School District, and thank you for watching.